My name is Chiba. March 29th marked my official departure from the financial business in South Korea and my full-time commitment to the Indonesian business. Starting with April of this year, I have been dedicating 97% of my energy and ability to the Indonesian business. J-Trust Jump Together is our motto in South Korea, which encompasses our philosophy of growing together with all stakeholders. Our goal is to use financial services as a medium to foster happiness and promote mutual growth, hence our motto of Jump Together. On the other hand, we use the phrase jungle tiger within the context of the Indonesian business as part of company efforts to change perception amongst employees. 2 years ago, I was still in charge of investor relations back then. We knew that in the following year we would be going off the footpath and into a new frontier. We knew we needed to become strong like a tiger in order to survive in such an environment. We have thus made a very serious commitment and are in the process of implementing this philosophy. The Indonesian business posted a considerable loss. It has been 3 months since I officially started overseeing the business directly in Indonesia, but the rundown is that things are back under control and that we are confident we can turn things around. We have posted 20 billion yen in losses since last year, so some of you might be skeptical about these claims. However, I would like to assure you we are fully confident we can turn things around. The same thing happened with the financial business in South Korea, for which we posted a 5 billion yen loss during the first year and 2 billion yen for the second year. Ultimately, we managed to generate over 19 billion yen in profit over a 6-year period. When it comes to the Indonesian business, we have posted 20 billion yen in losses since last year. We managed to deliver a full fiscal year profit for the financial business in South Korea in 2.5 years. We expect it to take us 3.5 years to do the same thing in Indonesia. I will be going into more detail during today's presentation, but we are taking measures to ensure we build the Indonesian business upon a robust foundation. I would like to use this opportunity to outline our efforts in this area. Before assuming my assignment in Indonesia, I closed my eyes and tried to visualize the state of the Indonesian business 10 years, 30 years, and 50 years into the future. I went through this same visualization process with the financial business in South Korea, for which I tried to look 100 years into the future. As you can see on the slide, demographic trends in Indonesia follow the shape of a pyramid, while in Japan, the population structure assumes the shape of a vase. Indonesia's population is therefore characterized by an incredibly large number of young people. Living in Indonesia, I can attest to the fact that it is indeed a densely populated country. Please turn to the next page. Indonesia has a population of around 280 million people with an average age of 29.7. There is therefore an incredibly large number of young people in Indonesia, which is a country composed of approximately 17,000 islands. This makes it difficult, infrastructure-wise, for the whole country to develop economically all at once. However, Indonesia is on the path towards economic development. Over 650 million people live in the countries that make up the ASEAN region. Indonesia and Cambodia, where we expect to close on our deal for ANZ Royal Bank this year, make up about half of this number, representing an addressable market of about 300 million people. Indonesia is also the only country in Southeast Asia with a nominal GDP of over $1 trillion. As of the end of last year, per capita GDP exceeded $4,000. This is a region where the economy is accelerating rather quickly. I would like to go over economic growth statistics for Indonesia between the years 2000 and 2019. The average growth rate for ASEAN countries was 580% during this period. Vietnam was the fastest growing economy in the region, followed by Cambodia, which has grown approximately 800% since the year 2000. Indonesia registered a growth rate of 700%. This is indicative of a particularly stellar performance, even among ASEAN countries. The following images are an example of this economic development. The top row contains a picture of road infrastructure in Jakarta, the country's foremost metropolitan center, taken just before the 2018 Asian Games, which were held in the country. There was a push to complete the construction work before the opening ceremony, and as you can see from the picture to the right, roads are now ornamented with greenery. The sidewalks too look clean and modern. The bottom row shows Jakarta's mass rapid transit system, a massive project carried out in cooperation with a Japanese company. This project has finally been completed, giving the city a very modern subway system. Living in Jakarta, I have the opportunity to witness rapid infrastructure developments on a daily basis. Amidst all this, every day I close my eyes and run through the exercise of picturing Indonesia 10 years, 30 years from now. I cannot attest to the accuracy of these predictions, but according to a number of newspaper and magazine articles, it is said that by 2050, 30 years from now, there is a strong possibility Indonesia will have surpassed Japan in terms of GDP. I wonder if these predictions will come to pass. I have experienced firsthand the rapid rate of economic and infrastructure growth in the country. I tried visualizing BJI's position in the domestic Indonesian market 30 years from now. BJI struggled significantly, posting losses up until the end of last fiscal year. However, when we thought about it on a 30-year time frame, the opportunity to run a bank to which we have close to 100% ownership rights was a tremendous opportunity. In fact, I reached the conclusion that this isn't just a business opportunity, but an absolute necessity. Starting in September of last year, I was only in charge of the non-bank business. I was officially tasked with overseeing operations at BJI at the end of March of this year. I want to see the business in Indonesia prosper and flourish. Why did we struggle? It has been a total of 3.5 years since we entered the Indonesian market. Our problems in the Indonesian business can be attributed to the three main factors outlined in the current slide. These are insufficient employee skill, risk management, and IT system infrastructure. There was also the influence of NPLs, among other factors, but primarily our failure was due to an inability to properly assess the credit worthiness of borrowers and to properly manage risk. They hardly assessed and measured these risks. I posed a question to an Indonesian language teacher. I would talk to the employees at BJI and they would reply with, "That's alright, okay." Or they would reply with "Tidak apa-apa," which means no problem in the Indonesian language. I would task employees with doing something by a specified date and time, and they would reply with "Tidak apa-apa." So I asked this Indonesian teacher to teach me the opposite of this expression to signify there was indeed a problem. The Indonesian teacher wasn't expecting this question, and it took him maybe 2 minutes to finally say there really wasn't such an expression in the Indonesian language. He told me it was possible to string a number of words together to convey that meaning, resulting in a somewhat lengthy expression. It dawned on me this was why the standard response was "Tidak apa-apa." After this, we started incorporating the need to give instructions with clear deadlines. This strategy is starting to bear fruit. Let's say an employee says he or she will complete a task today. That could mean any time until 59 seconds into 11:59 p.m. For the first 2 months, employees wouldn't be able to complete their work by the agreed upon time. I would send them an email around 11:30 p.m. reminding them of the deadline. I would then have to send them additional emails every 30 minutes asking why the work hadn't yet been done. They would be 2 hours late. This was what I would call a battle of endurance. Most people in Indonesia identify as Muslim, and it is tradition to wake up at 3:30 a.m. and start praying at 4 a.m. It is around this time that they would check their email and see the messages I'd sent them. They would then cut their prayer session short and hurry to work at 5 a.m. to complete their work task. The first 2 or 3 months were spent like this, but we have now developed a workflow so that people can't evade their responsibilities. I'm currently working together with BJI employees so that they learn to manage and respect deadlines and to plan ahead so that they can fulfill their obligations. As we wrote in this slide, Indonesia will individually still post a loss for the current fiscal year. However, we are expecting a significant improvement compared to last fiscal year's loss of 20 billion yen. We will use the current fiscal year to rebuild a strong foundation for the Indonesian business. A robust foundation is an absolute necessity, for without one, any business is doomed to repeat a cycle of stagnation. I have a strong dislike for business strategies based on a weak foundation. The business foundation we built in South Korea is extremely robust and capable of withstanding even the deepest of recessions. I want to have built a robust foundation by December. This will involve the rebuilding of personnel and organization, a strengthening of risk management measures, and making improvements to IT. Regarding the bank's IT infrastructure, we will be dispatching the IT director responsible for IT infrastructure for the J-Trust Group in South Korea, one of the best in the field, to the Indonesian business. We will be carrying out these measures while at the same time enacting additional measures, namely by seeking to lower the cost of funds and accumulating quality assets. I would now like to address the reason it will take us an extra year to reach full fiscal year profitability in Indonesia compared to a timetable of 2.5 years for South Korea. Regulations are partially responsible for this. More specifically, when we were in South Korea, the J-Trust Group assigned 30 people to develop a foundation for the business. The members of this special task force moved to South Korea all at once, and then back to Japan after their work in the country was done. Indonesia is not very welcoming of foreign workers, so it's very difficult to get them to issue work visas for employees. Any structural reforms must also be approved by the Indonesia Financial Services Authority. Moreover, these structural reform plans can only be submitted on a specific day, only once a year. In the course of business, we would identify certain areas we would like to improve. However, we would have to wait until January of the following year. The Indonesia Financial Services Authority made an exception recently and allowed for submissions to be made after the end of June, an opportunity we took advantage of. Additionally, we have a large number of employees from the non-bank business. There is a requirement that prevents foreign employees without 5 years of banking experience from working in Indonesian banks. There is also a 5-year requirement for a foreigner to become a director at an Indonesian bank. I was a director at our bank in South Korea for close to 6 years, so I was able to become an official bank director. Unlike Japan and South Korea, Indonesia has a number of unwritten regulations and restrictions. Also, when it comes to NPLs, the process of auctioning off and liquidating real estate takes about 5 years. Things move differently compared to Japan and South Korea. Another peculiarity is that the revenue postage fee for a 100 billion yen or 1 trillion yen lawsuit is still 5,000 yen. This leads to a large number of lawsuits in the country. In Japan, lawsuits over large amounts require a similarly significant deposit. However, since the cost is only 5,000 yen in Indonesia, this significantly lowers the hurdle of initiating litigation against someone. There is a number of peculiarities unique to Indonesia, so we are still learning as we go. For this reason, I believe it will take us a year longer than it took us for the financial business in South Korea to reach full fiscal year profitability. The current slide deals with our mobile banking system. I believe my predecessor in charge of the Indonesian business also mentioned this starting 3 years ago, but BJI doesn't have an internet banking service for retail depositors. However, this system is ready to be launched. The system has been approved by financial authorities, and we are currently awaiting approval from the country's central bank. Once we have obtained approval, we will be able to accrue deposits from people all over Indonesia. Also, as it stands, deposits and withdrawals can only be processed through a bank teller. Depositors can also only update their bank books directly at a bank branch through the services of a bank teller, as ATMs in Southeast Asia don't have this functionality. People aren't willing to deposit money in a bank that doesn't allow them to view their checking account balance online. I, as an employee, have already downloaded this mobile banking app and am using it. The testing phase is over, and we are a single step away from fully launching this app. Receiving regulatory approval and making this app widely accessible will allow for the stable accumulation of customer deposits. It will also help us to lower BJI's cost of funds. Last year, I had a meeting with a high-level official at the Indonesia Financial Services Authority who asked me to bring to Indonesia the same team responsible for rebuilding a failed bank the J-Trust Group had purchased in South Korea. It is not feasible to move the entire team to Indonesia, but we have built a 10-person team, which I am a part of, as is Mr. Adachi. 6 other members worked with me and Mr. Adachi in rebuilding a failed bank we purchased in South Korea. BJI's shareholders meeting will be held tomorrow. Ritsuo Fukudai is the president director of BJI. Mr. Fukudai has experience in the financial business in South Korea and was also head director of Nihon Hosho's overseas division last year. Starting with this year, Mr. Fukudai will be taking up a new post in Indonesia. Jo Wonjun is, as I mentioned earlier, the J-Trust Group's head IT director in South Korea. Mr. Wonjun will also join our team in Indonesia. Toshio Yasumatsu has a long track record overseeing the credit screening process as head director at Nihon Hosho. Mr. Yasumatsu has a very keen eye when it comes to credit screenings, and he will be joining our team in Indonesia. Mr. Kobayashi is a risk management professional with an employment history at Japan's megabanks and at the FSA. He will also be joining our team. The 4 people in the bottom row are already in Indonesia and include Mr. Matsuoka, former president of the servicer business in South Korea, among others. These senior members of management are already carrying out structural reform in Indonesia. As a result of this, and as I mentioned earlier, if we adhere to the protocols and controls, positive results will follow naturally. A while back, I had the opportunity of meeting and talking to the head of a major conglomerate in Indonesia. During this talk, I lamented our company's undesirable performance in Indonesia and expressed a commitment towards improving the health of the company, also in the context of our dealing with other companies. This individual then told me J-Trust's performance in Indonesia wasn't all that unusual. All banks operating in Indonesia are scheduled to adopt the IFRS accounting standard from next year. Even state-run companies will be found to be undercapitalized when this change happens. Upon hearing this, it occurred to me this could be a chance for us. This individual told me the reason J-Trust is underperforming in Indonesia is because we adopted the IFRS accounting standard earlier than other banks. According to him, Other banks in Indonesia are in poor financial shape as well. I believe we at J-Trust will be able to perform to the fullest extent of our ability in this financial climate. For this reason, next year, we want to acquire quality clients from institutions facing a credit crunch. We are carrying out preparations to offer credit to Japanese and South Korean companies operating in Indonesia through our head office in each respective country. We have created the Japan Linkage and Korea Linkage division within our bank in Indonesia. This division is currently composed of only 5 people, but we believe the scope of this division will grow to 100 or 200 employees over the next 2 years. Our plan is to acquire as customers all Japanese and South Korean companies operating in Indonesia and who need financing. We expect to enact reform and restructure our bank through these initiatives. I am aware these are ambitious targets, so perhaps some of you would like to see actual results. It has only been a short time since I arrived in Indonesia. Initially, starting with September of last year, I was in charge of the non-bank business in the country. I would like to use this opportunity to show you our results in this business segment. More specifically, these are results associated with J-Trust Olimpindo Multifinance, or JTO. As you can see from the graph, the red line represents the ratio of NPLs as a percentage of JTO's loan balance. This figure stood at 2.61% in June of last year. This represents the percentage of loans delinquent for over 90 days. In just over 6 months, this number has dropped to 1.48%. The loan balance is growing, although only slightly since we acquired Olimpindo. The section colored blue represents the amount of loans we offer to borrowers who qualify under our strict lending standards. We employ high lending standards. However, our marketing efforts have led to an increase in credit applications. Even with low closing rates, we have therefore been able to achieve a combo of low NPL ratio coupled with an increase in the loan balance. Please turn to the next page. The following graph shows this increase in loan volume. Compared to the period around April, May, and June of last year, we are seeing a 5 to 6-fold increase in new high-quality loans. When I was in South Korea, I managed to expand the monthly loan amount from around 200 million yen to around 40 billion yen. I believe we can deliver a 200-fold increase in terms of loan balances like we did in the financial business in South Korea. For this reason, I am not satisfied with a 5 to 6-fold increase. However, since JTO is in the non-bank business, factors like the procurement of funds are in play. For this reason, I believe we are making progress at a very good pace. The contract period was until May, so we carried out a number of activities while we were waiting for regulatory approval for the inclusion of Olimpindo into the J-Trust Group. Please turn to the next page. We entered into loan partnerships with Kubota, Yanmar, Kyoto, and Iseki & Company Limited, the 3 biggest manufacturers in Japan, and Kyoto, one of the most prestigious listed companies in South Korea. These companies will sell tractors and agricultural equipment while providing leasing options for customers. At the time of acquisition, Olimpindo boasted an overall network of close to 40 branches. This number has increased since then, and we have also secured 37 dealer locations. Yanmar had turned down a partnership with another financial institution since a majority of loans wouldn't go through. They have agreed to partner up with JTO since we will be carrying out credit checks and loans on our own. We are truly thankful for this opportunity. The following page shows the trends and results derived from our efforts. The green dotted line represents the ratio of quality loans, while the blue line represents the NPL ratio, which, as I mentioned earlier, went down to 1.48% from 2.61%. We have also seen a decrease of close to 50% in terms of the credit loss ratio, which stood at 0.74% in August of last year. Carrying out these various measures in our field of expertise, which is the non-bank business, inevitably leads to improved results. I wanted to show those of you gathered here today the fruits of our efforts over the past 6 months. I believe our results for JTO are a sign of recovery when it comes to our restructuring efforts at our bank in Indonesia and other aspects of the Indonesian business. I believe we will be seeing growth around JTO. The next page showcases new products. Auto loans and loans for agricultural equipment are highly liquid, so we want to use these as current assets while issuing loans. Please turn to the next page. We have dispatched compliance supervisors to all branch locations. I carried out this initiative in the financial business in South Korea. That is, I established the position of compliance supervisor at all branch locations. This is similar to having an auditor for each branch, that is, someone whose duty is exclusively overseeing compliance. I currently monitor information from each branch location and give instructions to the compliance supervisors to check certain aspects of the business. These compliance supervisors go visit our clients and ask various questions to find if, for example, our bank employees performed their duty in explaining the products being sold, or if there was any kind of impropriety. They visit our clients to make sure that employees followed the appropriate contract procedures and provided customers with proper explanations. Another function these compliance supervisors perform is to visit our clients and collect on delinquent loans. In doing so, they make sure how much the client has paid back already. We have therefore taken steps to strengthen our monitoring structure. Approximately 2 years ago, when we entered the Indonesian market, we announced the following milestones during our financial results presentation. Back then, we announced we had managed to increase the number of point-of-sales locations to 46 over the course of 1 year. We also announced we had managed to increase our loan balance to 162.7 billion rupiah. I was in charge of investor relations back then when I made this announcement during the company's financial results presentation. After the team and I started overseeing the Indonesian business, we were able to grow the number of point-of-sales locations to 76 in 6 months. We also managed to grow our loan balance to around 3 times the size it was 2 years ago. We succeeded in achieving this goal in 6 months. These results indicate this is our true ability. The next page contains a prediction of future trends for JTO, our multi-finance company in Indonesia. The blue sphere at the bottom corresponds to the period when we acquired the company, for which it delivered a loss. This is our 5-year forecast. We expect ROA to exceed 5% within a 5-year time frame. A ROA of 5% is rather rare. However, we believe we can achieve this goal. We will be aiming to achieve a performance on par with Summit Auto Finance, which is a part of the Mitsubishi Corporation, within a period of 4 to 5 years. In 5 to 8 years, we aim to deliver a performance on par with BCA Finance, which currently has the best ROA performance in the industry. One can say J-Trust Olimpindo Multi-Finance survived because of BJI, since we were able to put the know-how we acquired at BJI to good use. If Olimpindo hadn't become a part of the J-Trust group, it would have faced serious financial problems. This is because all the major players in the multi-finance industry shown on this slide are affiliated with prominent banks. Last year, One of the top 3 companies went bankrupt after it was found to be engaging in financial impropriety. Following this incident, the Indonesia Financial Services Authority issued new and stricter regulations on multi-finance activities, closing off access to funding for these companies. This is similar to what happened with the consumer loan industry in Japan about 20 years ago. It was at that time that Olimpindo approached us to become a part of the J-Trust group. I interpret this as a sign it wasn't the time for us to leave the Indonesian business. We are in the process of rebuilding the Indonesian business. Going forward, we want to increase our core capital. This extends beyond just the financial business in Southeast Asia, since as banks grow in size, it is necessary to have enough core capital. For this reason, we recognize the need to find partnerships, including with institutions in each country and region. Another factor to take into account, as I mentioned earlier, is the fact that the legal process takes considerably longer than in developed countries. The same holds true when it comes to loan collection. For this reason, we must come up with strategies to deal and control this time issue. Additionally, we want to find out what the total addressable market for loans is in Indonesia. Indonesia is a very populous country. However, unlike in Japan and in South Korea, given access to unsecured loans, like cash advance loans, a majority of Indonesians would simply default on the loans. A good way to visualize this market is to picture a pyramid. We almost exclusively lend to the top 5% of wealthy companies, and this includes state-run banks. Since we have acquired a multi-finance company in the form of JTO, rather than approach the mid-range section of the market spectrum, we have decided to issue loans with automobiles and agricultural equipment as collateral. This mid-range section of the market spectrum represents a very large addressable market in Japan and South Korea. However, 3 months in, I believe this is a very challenging market segment when it comes to Indonesia. However, I will be personally going over all NPLs with a fine-tooth comb and identify the reason behind the non-performance of each of these loans. We will then use this information in the credit screening process and as an input in our lending business. We will carry out these efforts over the current year, and I believe we will be able to grow our loan balance close to 10-fold by next year or the year after that, rather than deliver a mere 2 to 3-fold increase. The main message I would like to drive home to stakeholders is as follows. The Indonesian business has been our main concern. However, we believe this business has found a bottom. We have also developed a strategy and solution for going forward. I would like all shareholders gathered here today to bear witness to what I said here today and see if it matches our results 3.5 years from now. This concludes my presentation.